Hey folks, Segasonicfan here, and today I'm going to be repairing slash upgrading my friend's Sega Nomad. You can see it has what's called the vinegar syndrome, which is a phenomenon where screens that are old, active matrix style screens like this, or I guess this is an LCD, they suicide over time and do this weird chemical type thing. I don't even know what this is exactly. I have to do some research, but it ain't easily repairable, that's for sure. And when it's that bad, you might as well do the screen upgrade. So my friend asked me to do so, and I figured I'd show my steps of doing that. First thing I'm going to do is, first thing I did actually was take out all the screws, obviously, to open the case. The 4 screws here are Phillips screws, but then you're going to need a special bit for the screw down here. This is what's called an external line head screw. However, if you search game bit screwdriver and stuff like that, you can find one. However, you want one with a very long shaft. I bought this one over 15 years ago when they did not sell ones for Sega Nomad, and so you can see I had to actually drill away some of that one. They sell longer shaft ones now and shouldn't be too much of a problem. Once you get those screws out, you can open your unit, and then you're going to have this ribbon cable here. You're going to need to pry up the 2 little plastic tabs, and I imagine there's other instructions online for opening up a Sega Nomad, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is there's little 2 tabs on the left and right that you pull out like so, and the cable should then come right out. I love working on the Sega Nomad. I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of hardware, especially for video games ever made. You can see here it says made in Japan, baby. This thing is a gorgeous feat of engineering, and I used to wonder why there's this big fat copper here, and this is for all of the love and care that Sega went to shield this cable, because this cable has video data, a whole bunch of stuff. The way this is designed, actually, everything under here, this entire board is essentially a Genesis Model 2. Down to just about every single component, minus the controller chip, which is here, the audio operational amplifier. This is it's like a quad or a 6 op amp. This is Sega's custom op amp, which mixes the FM PSG signals. And over here, which is the chroma encoder, which takes the RGB video data and converts it into composite video. Those are the only things. The controller chip is normally in a video game controller. So really this section and this section, you combine with the back, and you have a Genesis Model 2. It's pretty amazing. They got this to be portable, and I love Sega for it. You can see here they've got a high voltage inverter, because this was long before people did LED backlights. It was another maybe 6 or 7 years after this was manufactured before manufacturers started exploring OLED backlights. Sorry, white LED backlights. OLED stuff came later. And this here is the TFT controller chip, which takes the RGB video data and converts it to this really large parallel output to drive the LCD. So we know our problem is the LCD itself. There's not much to be done there, but to just take it out, really. And so I'm going to be removing this copper strip, and then I'm going to be carefully going along this edge here to remove that screen. Now to do so, I've got to take out these Phillips screws here. You don't actually need to take out this one. You can unplug this. This is for the start and select buttons. And I always recommend when you're removing plugs, especially to old systems, a lot of these plugs are not super durable, use angled pliers like this. Get them under the tabs and pull like so. Try not to pull on the wires, because it can just pull out the crimps and make your life unhappy. Probably should have just pulled it from there, but whatever. So yeah, I'm going to do some of this off camera, because I don't think you need to see me undo a bunch of screws. And go from there. And oh, by the way, the kit that I got is this guy off of eBay. It's about $70-something. It's one of the Chinese sellers. I normally try to buy directly from the designers, but Norix, the DRV whatever board, he doesn't sell those outside of Japan, and there weren't any for sale at the time I was looking for one to buy for my friend. So I did have to end up going the sort of slightly more suspect route, and I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that this all works out with amicable results. Okay, back here, removing the Sega Nomad screen, and I will say that I was wrong, and the only way to remove this correctly is to use a hot air gun. Anything else, the pins on the underside, the connectors for the ribbon will just stay flush. And you can see here, this is where I used the hot air gun, and this is where I didn't. And so what will happen, which is quite unfortunate, it's still repairable in my case, I think. Let's go ahead and refocus the camera. But you're going to have stuff like this where the contact is really going to stay stuck under there. So when this starts to pull up, even if you got all the others, one of them continues to stay stuck, or a couple here, as you can see. Fortunately, none of them ripped off completely, and it should be repairable should this screen become repaired. The other thing to keep in mind is that this screen is very easy to scratch. I mean, very easy to scratch. So make sure you are working on a silicone matte surface like this, or something very soft. Additionally, you will notice that there is a adhesive sticker which is also holding in the cable on the other side. Now I could probably heat this up, but I think it could pull up on its own if I just get the corner here. Like so. Ta-da! Screen is off. Cool. So now I'm going to clean up the contacts here, because even if I'm not using them directly, which I might, yeah, I don't think I'll be using them directly because it's the TFT but output, but that's okay because I still want to make this nice and clean, not have any weird things happening later down the road. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of flux, turn my fume extractor back on. I'm also going to do a little bit of solder. That just makes it easier for doing drag soldering stuff like this. Got a little solder blob there, so I cleaned off the tip in my copper mesh tip cleaner. And these are good quality traces. They're not peeling off the board even after 25, 30 years now, which can happen with some of the older stuff. Now I'm going to go take out some Q-tips. Some of these are a little bit used already. I like to use them sometimes till they're at their very bottom, just environmental reasons and waste disposal. I mean, you're literally cleaning up gunk, so, you know, it's what they're designed for. Some of this stuff's going to be a little harder to get off because it's not actually my flux, it's flux from the factory. It's that bright orange color, that's ye old flux. And that's okay. Do I really need to get all the flux? Probably not. But I just like to do a clean job. Make things look as good as new, ready from the factory. Alright, then we'll get the other side of our Q-tip here. Alright, so we've got our screen connector cleaned up, the screen removed. It's a sad sight to see. I like the OEM stuff myself, but the upgrade's going to be pretty nice too. And we'll go off camera and start looking at the instructions and seeing how we're going to install this whole thing. Right, so I'm just looking at the original screen connector here. I thought I'd just show what happens with these old ribbon cables from the 90s, because I've talked about this in my virtual ribbon videos as well, which is the add-on that I designed for the Virtual Boy. So yeah, Virtual Boy has a very similar thing, and it's just these very thin, very cheap ribbon cables, and stuff just peels right off. Fortunately, I've repaired this one enough that it would be possible to reinstall should I have a need to later. And who knows, maybe that issue with the LCD might be fixable. I kind of have my doubts, but you can see here where I did the heat gun, at least that turned out much better. But you have to be quick with it, and you have to have the right temperature. So yeah, these are very prone to just melting off the... It's a kind of a polyamide tape behind the contacts. And yeah, something to keep an eye out for. All right, here we are with the 3D printed bracket, fresh out the oven. We'll see if this works. It has to be printed with supports, from what I could tell. There's some improvements to the model I think I could make, but I just figured I'd try the available model first, see if it works. All right, back here with our print, and getting these supports out has been totally not fun. Normally my supports come out pretty easy. My PLA settings have been finely tuned, but this time it might just be too much. I mean, this is a huge overhang, so too much surface area for the supports to attach to. Possibly my Z height was a little bit low, my offset, and that squished the PLA a little bit. And I could have put a larger gap for the Z height, I suppose, too, but still, man, this is gnarly. All right. Okay, I think I've got all of it. It's not going to be flush, of course, because that's the nature of supports. I could have added a 0.3, 0.4 millimeter offset, which is pretty good for the Z overhang stuff, but let's see what we got. Gotta do this kind of carefully. Up. Kind of works. It's kind of in there. Sort of. I have to go get that corner. Alright, I'm going to do this off camera and get this corner and some other stuff cleaned up so it can fit a little better. But it looks like it's going to be a good fit. I did test this in CAD to measure the measurements, and it is quite snug from what I saw in the CAD, which is what I'm finding here in the actual model. So if your dimensional accuracy settings are not finely tuned, this ain't going to fit for you. You got to really have your stuff calibrated. But that's okay. Let me do a little more here and I'll be back. Back here for one more go at this. I think I got the material finally out completely. It was really attached on the X, Y, and Z axis, so if I redid this, I'd really have to look at those gaps. Like I said, normally it's fine with my prints. I don't know. I did do some glue for the bed adhesion, but which I don't normally do because it was such a wide surface area and those supports were lifting up a bit, but I don't see why that would give me this problem. Anyway, I do want to say safety first. Boy, have I seen a lot of blood working with X-Acto knives over the years. My own blood cutting into myself, not doing things carefully. Remember, the blade always faces away from you. Doesn't matter how involved you are in the project. It's not worth giving yourself a big gash. X-Acto blades are probably the most dangerous tool I work with nowadays, including woodworking, because it's just way too easy to cut into yourself doing stuff like this. All right, looks like it fits pretty good. It's really snug. There's a little bit of play though, as far as like pushing out the plastic, so that's good. Like if I need to. And yeah. And then if you flip it over here, that slots in very nicely. The part that doesn't have the supports. It's got a nice little grip on there too. Again, very, very tight tolerances, but they did a good job. Now there was a person who scanned the Sega Nomad models, and I'm sure that helped with this. I'm going to try to put credit for everyone in the description, as well as links to this model, including any links to any upgrades I might do to make this a little easier for folks, although it's not too bad as it is. It's pretty nice. I'm pretty impressed. I gotta say, of all the open source stuff I find, you know, some stuff is rarely kind of right off the bed usable, and I think this one's gonna be, I shouldn't say rarely, but maybe 50% of the time. Yeah, pretty good. One thing I was wishing was for the extra added posts. There's some little extended posts here and here that the original Sega Nomad screen bracket has, that white plastic, and they're not included here. It would be pretty easy to add that to the model. You can see I get a little bit of a gap there, but not too bad. That's probably going to be that 0.3 to 0.5 extrusion material that's still there from the supports. And these posts are really thick, but I think that's okay. I think the openings might be a little large too for the screws, but we'll find out if they tap in okay. Yeah, things are looking good. I'll vacuum up all this little plastic and go from there. All right, I'm actually really impressed. I had it in backwards originally, but once you put it in the correct way, this is really quite nice. I would maybe consider not having this lip here where the ribbon cable goes, just because I don't want to compress that. Give it a little bit more breathing room would be nice. But and the tolerances are very snug. I mean, it works, but it is snug. You better have your dimensional accuracies tuned within 0.1 millimeters if you're going to do this print the way it is. But as you can see, it's nice. I mean, it's really nice. So, you know, it's definitely like an engineering type print, not a hobbyist install type print. But everything threads really well. You don't really need those posts that the stock screen has. They're nice, but I think all they would do is complicate alignment. So I'm impressed that the designer had the wherewithal to just leave them out. This has been remixed from a couple iterations, so might be a little tricky to find the original designer of this, but maybe not on Thingiverse. I'll try to put everything in the description. You have it. This guy, you know, clips in basically through plastic here, here, and here. They're not clips though. I mean, it's literally just like tension, and it works, but it's very snug. And getting it out is not going to be fun should you ever need to. Hopefully you just won't. You'll just leave it in there permanently, and then you slot the flat flex yourself. You'll see mine's a little bit at an angle, so it was a little tricky to get in there, but not terrible. And the screen is also really snug too. If it was me, the only major improvement I would do is, and I don't think it's major, but I would have this be a little more loose, even quite loose, and just, you know, put a little dab of hot glue or whatever to hold it in place. It's already going to be held in place mostly from compressing against the rubberized inner bevel of the screen, but yeah, I don't think this level of snugness is quite necessary. But you know, it works. I'm happy. I mean, it seems to work. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen fit and then do all the wiring, and hopefully I'll be done with this pretty soon. Okay, here we are back now with everything wired up, feeling optimistic. This is going to be good. And the wires were a little bit long, so I cut them a little bit shorter, as you can see. Also, black and red for the power and black for the ground were not included. It was all these white wires. So that's kind of odd. I thought those would be some of the easiest to include, but whatever. I have some on hand, so not a big deal. I'll go ahead and zoom in on the solder points because the images that I'm working with are not the best, and maybe it will help you. Let's go ahead. I'll see if I can do it without a microscope. I think it should be okay. We zoom in over here. We see that blue is the second pin from the left on the top. The one in the corner is green. The one under it is red. Ground can be pulled from here or anywhere on the frame of that DIN 9. Button B, I'm just kind of going with just where my camera's easily transferring to. Button B goes over here to test point 222. I believe it says 222 or 223. Anyway, right there. A goes right here, test point 221, TP221. BK is the second pin from the left on your brightness dial, as you can see there. You remove R244, and then there's two resistors here, R249, I believe. Let me double check this for you right now. Those are easier to see in the documentation, but yeah, R246. Sorry, R246, R244, R247, and R249 get removed. So this resistor, that resistor, and then there's a resistor down here that also R247. Oh, look at that. I didn't remove that one yet. Okay, good to go over your work. I'm going to pop this one out. I have a fancy tool for doing this, which makes it almost like cheating. It's so easy. Oh, I did pop it out. Never mind. That's just a little bit of a black gunk from the adhesive they put on in the factory. All right. Unless I'm tripping. Is there still a resistor there? No, there's still a resistor there. It's morning. I'm tired. Let's go ahead and just do this real quick. Let's get that wire out of the way. There we go. There we go. Go here, add just a little bit of flux to the pads to make sure there's no shorts. Not totally necessary, but I'm just going to do it in this case because I feel like it. Okay, and then we'll get this wire back on. This BK wire, which I'm assuming stands for backlight, something like that. Okay. So that's that area. Also, it helps, hopefully this video helps you because I'm doing this all upside down basically compared to the pictures they showed because, well, it makes more sense to wire it that way. TP248, that's your C-Sync. We did red, green, blue, ground, C-Sync. And so that's these ones over here. Those are all done. We did button A and B over here. And we did BK over here. Now the mode goes over here to TP220, that middle test point, or that middle pin there, going to that test point. That's where your mode button goes. And then your 5 volts and your ground. There's that A there, that little like fused copper there. That's that trace. That's where they're having you grab power. And then the ground is here, which is the negative side of that 820 microfarad capacitor that's on the other side of the board. And you can continuity check those. It's always a good idea with the plug here. I forget if this A, I think it goes through the diode, so you might not get. But yeah, power comes in here, goes through a reverse polarity diode, and then out there. And then power comes here through the ground. There's a ground plane that's shared. It goes there. All right, so I'm going to put this all together. I'm going to screw in our 3D printed bracket here. but I can show you, how it goes, which of course it's good to kind of test, make sure the screws fit and everything before you do all your wiring. Make your life a little easier, but it's going to go like that. Make sure the wires aren't going to cover the buttons and pads and things. That's going to be a little bit of a findangling thing, but not a big deal. And we'll get this put back together. All right, it's all going. Things are looking pretty nice on this IPS screen. In person, it looks really nice. I haven't even removed the protective film, so it's going to look a lot better once I do that. But note of caution, make sure you only wire up these points for power. So don't go anywhere near that large trace where it says A. That's the higher voltage input. To get 5 volts, you want it to where it says K right there, which is the bottom of that 820 microfarad capacitor, that electrolytic capacitor on the other side. I stupidly wired up to the A right above where it's soldered now, just that one joint above, and gave my whole board 8.5 volts. Amazingly, it seems to be still working. That is amazing. I was like, I'm going to have to order another one. So don't do that, kids. But I'm pretty impressed. This is looking nice. I'm going to go ahead and redo these wires now that, because I don't really want to have to work with finagling these around the buttons. I'm going to try to run them out the top or right out the corner here and have them be nice and short. The other wires, they're okay. The ones for the controller. You want the video wires to be as short as possible though. That's always quite good. And not be near any power stuff. Other than that, this just looks really clean. If this wasn't 3D printed, you could be fooled into thinking this is a stock configuration almost. Well, almost. You got these wires, but looks really nice. I'm going to be excited to see how it looks when it's all in the case. Oh man, still thinking about a better bracket. This is coming loose already, and it can hit the board underneath, which is not good. The way to do this properly is to make slides, little side holders here, so the motherboard slides in, then the screen goes with the flex cable poking through. And or even just screws, just something to hold this in place rather than relying on the tolerances. I drilled down the corners near the front so it doesn't press on it anymore, but I was getting bright spots from pressure. This is designed to be super flush with hard plastic and to not use the foam stuff that comes stock in the Nomad, which is not the way I would have gone about it, but it seems to work with some finagling and some cutting away of the plastic. Okay, back here again with the Sega Nomad screen upgrade. This is proving to be quite a bit of extra work beyond what I thought it would be. These wires are quite cheap, and they'll just break off with just a little bit of back and forth. So something to be aware of. I thought it's good insulation, but just really bad, the internal wires themselves. And you can see here, it's hard to squeeze these under. I shortened them a bit, but they really need to be away from the rubber pads that are going to go here. And then additionally, if I zoom in here, there's quite a few notes here. They really should have done an indent here for the plastic that goes around the LED. That's another part where it's kind of a tight fit. And again, I just really don't like the design that this is actually flush with the hard plastic case. Much preferred to use that rubber foam stuff and have it just a couple millimeters further back, as the design is supposed to be with these sort of things. Power stuff's good, but make sure I was covering that hole, and that caused me some problems. Additionally, it's really easy to just get wires caught under the posts when I'm screwing the 3D print back in. Additionally, I had to add some hot glue to hold the board down because the way it's fit, there aren't clips. It's just kind of a sort of press fit thing, and if you have to remove it once or twice, it stops working. Additionally, I've had to do a lot of work cleaning the screen. This screen is glossy, so fingerprints and smudges of any kind show up like nobody's business, and it's really quite difficult to get fingerprints off of this thing. Many wipes later, you can still see there's some smudges. So it really doesn't do well for that finger grease And but if you have a camera lens cloth like this and you do it enough passes, you can get it. But additionally, it's really easy to catch little particles and stuff like here in this corner. I might even have to use a sharp tool to get that out, which I really don't want to. But that one's going to be hard to get out with my plastic tool. Yeah, it's really in there. It is below the viewing area, so it might actually be a chip in the... That actually might be a chip in the corner. I'm going to leave that. It's outside the viewing area. And it doesn't show up when the case is closed up. But additionally, I'm going to have to use my compressed air thing and blow all the dust parts and stuff out. And yeah, I think I did it finally. So let's turn on the air compressor, blow out the air that's in there, and put this back together. Just having issues with the darn touch sensor menu. Make sure the cable is pushed all the way down in the case. Hopefully this will fix it. Very annoying bug. Basically the screen will enlarge and shrink over and over and over again once the game starts. And that's because of a touch sensor malfunction. So yeah, piece of copper, not always the best. Probably should have been soldered in the middle as well. Let's see what we can do. All right, so here we are with the upgraded Sega Nomad RGB DRV LCD from China that I installed for my friend. And I gotta say, this one's pretty great. Also, if you haven't played Alien Soldier, oh my god, do yourself a favor. This game is completely amazing. Also, do yourself a favor. Get yourself the soundtrack for it from Data Discs. Oh yeah. This is a good showcase of the speed where you would normally get a fair amount of blur. And I'm not playing very well, of course, because I'm trying to show off the screen. One of the cool things about this game is you get life up all the time. These little things increase your life. But the game is so hard that that's not actually easy. It's a great punishing difficulty kind of game, like Treasure is known for. And so yeah, you can see that it does a good job. For the price and everything like that, I got no complaints. Is it perfect? Is it a one-to-one with the Sega Nomad original RGB screen that's designed for with the original aspect resolution and all that kind of stuff? No, it actually does have a very, very minor bit of tearing on vertical games. And I don't know if I have a vertical game to show right now. Maybe I can, though. Let's see. I got my other flash cart here. Let's see if we can put in some Musha. And I'm crazy here, but I actually think there's still a lot of good reasons to have the original screen. And even more than nostalgia, I think just something about, retro systems and stuff. They're having it like it was in the 90s. It's something special to that. Is it would they put Musha under M? I think so. Let's see. Musha, where you at? Somewhere in here. Ooh, you know what we could try? Let's try Felios. Is that not in here? A lot of Phantasy Star. Alright, here we go. And maybe this will give you an idea of the screen tearing. But it's nice. It's crisp and everything. There's a ton of different modes in this, which is cool. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, now you can see the screen tearing stuff. It ain't so hot. But you can live with it, I mean, if you're buying this, you're probably just so happy that you can see clearly with the IPS. You're not super picky about this, the brick kind of shimmering thing that's happening on the left and right of the screen. Because, yeah, it looks really clear and stuff. But, I don't know what it is. These IPS screens, maybe it's a scanline, lack of a scanline option or something, but they can look too modern for me. It takes away a bit of the magic. I do still like the old screen a lot. And the Nomad one wasn't so bad. The best one, of course, is the original Turbo Express. That screen looks great. PC Engine GT. I mean, for the era. And then I think if you press down, what is it? A, B, and mode. That's when you get the different modes here. So you can change brightness to a set brightness or VR, which once I go up here... Oh, I have to go down. Yeah, that's the other thing. So A will go up, and then B goes down in the brightness or whatever, but it doesn't wrap around, which is kind of dumb. So if you go all the way down, you don't go back up to the top, which would be nice. VR means variable resistor, so that means I can use the dial here to change the brightness. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer. I want it to be on variable resistor, unless your knob is maybe broken or something. So, and then if I press mode again, there's different color modes. I'm not sure why you would need this. It's not a Nintendo. You know, that was useful for Game Boy. Again, I have to go all the way back down because it doesn't wrap around. And then there's a pixel mode, which... oh, right, and then there's also a panel ratio. Well, that seems to help with the shimmering. Okay. Well, a little bit. Still there. What happens if I... And there's a factory reset. Let's see, what happens if I do that? That's right, because then I'm playing the game, but... Yeah, that seems to have helped quite a bit. Panel ratio on 1. And then, of course, we've got color gain. And that's a pretty subtle effect, except when you get down to the lower levels. That's pretty cool. And then the touch is for accessing this menu or different modes and stuff with a touch sensor instead of buttons. And that's fine. And then factory reset, of course, if you need to do that. I'm actually kind of impressed with the panel ratio thing. I always forget how to get out of this menu, too. I think you have to hold down mode and the 2 buttons. Yeah, there you go. So let's see. Let's try this with the new ratio thing I enabled. See if how that looks. I just wish there was a scanline option. And I also, you know, maybe this is asking too much, but some kind of a like very mild CRT kind of phosphor blur effect would be cool. But I gotta say, this is actually pretty nice with that changed mode. I'm looking off camera and on camera, and I don't see that vertical artifacting anymore. That's pretty sweet. I'm not even trying to play the game, by the way, which is why I'm doing so incredibly bad. Because I'm looking at the technical aspects. But this is a great piece of kit if you're looking to upgrade your Nomad, especially if your screen's broken. If you got the vinegar syndrome, which was the case with this one, and you don't have a choice, then you should get this upgrade. If you have a choice and your original screen is working, man, I'm going to be unpopular for this recommendation, but I say keep it. Because that's what makes the Nomad part of its charm, you know? That's what makes it a vintage game system, and I think there's something special to it. I think if you want, unless you have a second, like an extra Nomad or something, just get, like, you know, one of the analog things or whatever, or get one of the, like, 1,000,001 different knockoff things that are out there. Get a Megajet. But I don't, nowadays, I don't actually support destroying original screens for game systems. I mean, it has to be really bad. Something like the original Game Boy, maybe the original Game Gear. You know, those haven't aged very well. But the Nomad screen is nice. The Nomad screen's not bad at all. Let's do, you know, maybe I'm crazy. Let's do a little comparison. Because what do I have here? Why, it's an original unmodded Sega Nomad. This is my personal copy. And let's go ahead and fire up the exact same game. And see what it's like. Oh yeah. You got that CCFL tube A little bit of warmth from the tube there. And a little bit of a color desaturation. And it's blurry, all right. But it's part of the charm, man. I don't know. I like it. I think it's part of the charm. And everything is rock solid as far as, like, you know, there's no shimmering or anything like that because the hardware was designed for this screen. It was designed around it, just like the Game Gear and the Game Boy. And so that's pretty nice. Although I will say, I think it is a little bit less. I do remember it being less than 480i. So there is a little bit of loss of detail, I think, in some of the RGB or RPG text. I don't play RPGs very much, so it's not really a concern for me. But this is totally playable, and for me it's totally enjoyable. It feels more like a 90s console and less like I'm playing an emulator. And I don't know, just I'm just weird, man. There's just something about having the original stuff and having the original experience. I like it. I don't think I'll upgrade this screen. Quote-unquote upgrade. Because I just think the original is good. And it's... I have more fun playing on it? I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe it is a nostalgia thing. I didn't have one of these growing up. I mean, I did get one in, like, 2000-something. So, I didn't, like, have one as a kid. But I had one maybe in college. Or maybe a little bit before college. But I didn't get one when they came out. So I don't have that kind of nostalgia like I have for the Game Gear, which I did get when it was released. But, yeah, the kind of slight blurring also... It also just makes stuff like this part of the game especially, not look so flat. You know, it gives it that depth, because you can't see every single pixel, like, super crisp and perfect. And I kind of like that. But I've played the Sega Nomad, the original, a ton. And sorry, this is probably shaking all over because I'm zoomed in. But I love this game system. Best handheld ever made in my book. And this is the original screen. And, you know, the viewing angle is not the best, not the worst. But it's not like the IPS one where, you know, you can see everything super clear. But for 1995, pretty damn good. Anyway, hope this video was useful to you. And I'll try to post some stuff in the description as well. Always read the description in my videos because I try to put more info there. And have fun playing video games. Sega Nomad stuff. This is Segasonicfan, signing out. Okay, a couple last things I forgot to say about this. I actually thought mine was broken for a second because the volume, the brightness knob here obviously controls the brightness when it's in VR mode, which stands for variable resistor, I believe. But it's kind of backwards. So normally when you play the Nomad and you turn it to the right, it increases the brightness, and vice versa. But in this one, it's to the left that it increases brightness. Also, you'll notice it's if I go here, it's very sensitive up to about there. And then the last bit, you see it's already completely black. But I can still turn this quite a bit. So it's not dialed in, no pun intended, to the dial. And that makes for a little bit of a wonky brightness control setup. If I had designed this and I had worked on this, I would have fixed that. But I'm more detail-oriented than some. The other thing is, I believe I can't see any advantage to having this on pixel ratio 2. It zooms in a little bit more, but I don't need that. And I turn off the touch as well, because I think that can cause other problems. Color gain set to 5. These settings seem to be pretty darn nice. By the way, this game's amazing if you haven't played it. There's a little bit of shimmering due to my camera, but it's not actually there in the actual game. I love this game so much. set that down so I can get something to show you all. Because I also have... Whoop, 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 whoop. The Wonder Boy soundtrack on vinyl, baby. That's the good stuff right there. Because I love these jams. And I'm so glad this one finally got translated. I actually played through this entire game back in 2004, I think it was, in Japanese. And you definitely don't get as much out of it. Although you still can play it in Japanese. You get quite a lot. There's like one boss in particular, though, that's a little bit tricky. It's like a rock, paper, scissors boss. Or something like that, if I remember correctly. Anyway, you can see... Let's get the brightness all the way up here. Gosh, I wish my camera would do this justice, but it really is quite nice. It really is quite nice. And like I was saying, it's not the same as the original screen. You do lose some of that nostalgia feels. But when the pixel ratio is set to 1, I don't notice any tearing kind of stuff anymore. And man, I wanted one of these so bad in the early 2000s, back when Sega Nomads were about $50 a piece, and I was hacking them all day long. Back then, I was like, sure, let's go get an extra one, and I would love to have it hacked with a newer screen. But nowadays, you know, these things are so expensive and so rare and vintage that I just can't say that it's worthwhile to kill an original screen for one of these. But if you have, like I said, if you have a screen that's done the vinegar thing and is all destroyed, or your CFL tube is on the fritz, those might be hard to replace. Although you could probably do those with an LED. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So there you go. And the bracket thing worked out pretty well. I managed to get it to where all the hot spots weren't there, so it's not pressing against the screen. But if the LCD is pressing against the glass at all, you will get hot spots in the screen. So I really wish, you know, that's one thing I would critique for the bracket that was developed, is it actually does away with the rubber gasket that comes with the Sega Nomad, which helps with you know, the screen being compressed in there. But hey, it works, does the job. I think my friend will be really happy with this. Hope for this video was helpful. Segasonicfan, signing out.